TV. Hey everybody, CatSynth TV. And it's my great pleasure to have with us Todd Barton, sonic adventurer, composer, educator, and performer of abstract freely improvised music, specializing in Buchla, Serge, and Hordijk instruments. He has been a leading practitioner and thinker in our community of synthesizers and music for decades, and more recently, he's introduced himself to a wider audience through his prolific and popular YouTube and Instagram channels. Todd Barton, welcome to CatSynth TV.
Oh, hi, Amanda. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Um, I said a mouthful there. For the members of our audience, many of whom will know you, but some of whom will not, how would you briefly describe yourself or introduce yourself?
Yeah, I think Sonic Adventurer was a good one. It's like I've been infatuated with sound all my life. So I've I spent 40 years of my life composing music for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival and other theaters across the country. So that was my day and night job for 4 decades. I also taught at the university, taught computer and electronic music and composition. But now I'm retired. I've always done music, everything from acoustic music in my early days, transitioning to almost purely electronics now in my old age, with the exception of Japanese bamboo flute shakuhachi. That is my acoustic go-to.
So there's a lot of different kinds of music there. And, how does one sort of combine or go between things like, music for the Shakespeare Festival, study of early instruments, and the very different world of not just electronic music, but the sort of very, I would describe it as non-linear musical world of Buchla, Serge, Hordijk, and modulars like we have behind each of us?
Yeah, um, I guess I've floated and swum freely among musical genres all my life. Everything from grew up as a trumpet player, doing jazz and classical, and moved on to Baroque trumpet, doing early music. And uh, I guess I'm omnivorous, like all genres, all makes and models of music and sound uh, fascinate me. And so I've tried to uh, um, open myself and be part of as many different musical experiences throughout my life. So
Yeah.
I find it easy to swim among.
Yeah, I can totally sympathize with that. I move freely between a lot of different types of music myself, so
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So, sort of drilling down a little bit deeper into specifically some of the synthesizer world, we talked about three different types of modular systems or three different synthesis types, Surge, Buchla, Hordijk. Um, how do you see them as distinct or different? I know I tend to see Surge as like building up from very primitive functions. Buchla is complexity with simple controls, and Hordijk is just, delightful chaos. So, how do you
Uh,
think of these different ones intersecting, combining, or, as separate instruments?
yeah, I mean, their similarity is they are each a closed system. They are, well, Surge can expand and contract, so can Buchla to a certain extent. But, Don and Surge and Rob Hordijk all designed the initial uh, constellation as an instrument. And so they have that's similar. But yeah, their internal raison d'etre is different. I like, you mentioned Surge sort of works with the building blocks and puts them together. For me, the essence of the Surge is the dual universal slope generator, which can be an oscillator, a filter, an LFO, envelope follower, or a subharmonic generator, yada, yada, yada. Uh, a single module is multifunctional, and almost all of Serge's modules are multifunctional. Uh, and hence patch programmability, where you can just patch, all throughout the neural network that you design uh, very easily, especially since CV and audio are carried in the same banana cables. Yeah. In Buchla, uh, definitely some of the modules are multifunctional, and but signal is in tiny jack cables and CVs in banana. So that's a completely different way of looking at it. I think what Don was thinking about is the signal is sort of the raw audio material, and the CV is the compositional aspect of how you shape and unfold things in time. And of course, for Buchla, for me, at any rate, the essences are the low pass gate, which is almost a physical modeling paradigm. You can get acoustic sounds you've never heard before, but they feel acoustic, except they're being created electronically. And then the wave shaping, or the wave folding in the Buchla 259 is just, I still haven't found the end of that. Uh, it seems to be, in the last 10 years with the Eurorack boom, uh, wave folding and wave shaping from Buchla and Serge have infused themselves into some of these newer designs. Um, and then, and of course, the source of uncertainty, the randomness is all the different flavors of random that Dawn explored in that single module. Then totally plays into those other two modules. Um, Hordijk, yeah, I mean, when you mention Hordijk and chaos, I think everyone thinks of the Blippo box or the Benjamin, which is, and in the original Hordijk system, it was the main thing was the Rungler, and the Rungler circuit is what's inside Benjamins and Blippos. But also that was just one module of the large Hordijk system. And that system, again, I think what, Serge and Don and Rob wanted to do was create an instrument that gave us composer performers as many choices and as many ways to explore sound possible. And of course, through their own personal design. And so, yeah, they're all three completely different. I rarely connect them because once I go, if I turn on the Hordijk, I just get lost, and I don't think about going outside that because I still haven't found everything that's in there. Same with my easel. I mean, I've been doing the easel for 15 years or something on almost a daily basis. And just this morning, I found new sounds. So it's like, uh, yeah, these are deep instruments.
I've actually, seen you perform with a few of these different ones. I was there at the Surge 40th anniversary show.
Oh, that's
That
right.
was a wonderful
Oh,
event. um, but then, more recent encounters I've seen, primarily with Buchla. I guess, whether it was the 100 system or the more common 200 system or the easel. And I know you've had a long relationship with these instruments. Can you talk a little bit about how that came about?
yeah, I didn't. My initial connection to Buchla was in the mid 70s with my friend Doug Leedy, and he had a really deep connection to Don. Doug Leedy was part of the San Francisco Tape Music Center, and so he was around Don and David Tudor and Morton Subotnick and Pauline Oliveros, all that. But I met him in the mid 70s, and one day he loaned me his easel for 3 days. And I had not been into electronic. I mean, I loved electronic music ever since I was in high school in the 60s and when I heard Silver Apples of the Moon, which is what, 1967, the year I graduated from high school. Yeah. I just went, what is this? And sort of in the back of my mind, actually, I've always wanted to figure out what is going on. And it's only in these latter years that now I can pretty much parse exactly what was going down. But that took decades. Anyway, I was amazed with the easel. It's like I it took me forever to get a sound out of it because he didn't give me a manual or anything. Just went upstairs in my little room and was there for days and finally got sounds I had never heard before and realized I could create new timbres. And I was just in heaven when I said, so how do I get one of these? And he goes, well, Don gave this to me. There's not many out there. And they're about $30,000. Or no, I guess they were $10,000 in 1976, which, as a 20 something year old, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to afford that. So, but that surely, you know, I got bitten by the electronic music bug. And then I heard about Serge and, quote, the people's synth is the way it was being described. And it was still, instead of $10,000, it was probably around $1,000 or 1,200. Um, and Serge at that time was in the Haight-Ashbury, and I grew up in the Bay Area, so I would always be going down to visit my parents. And went to visit Serge, late 70s, and said, "Can you build me one?" And then, actually, I had to save up for a couple of years, and then, yeah, so I had this nice 3 panel that I still have. In fact, when you saw me perform at Serge's 40th reunion, I performed on that very instrument. I mean, it's held up, and I've had it since 1979. Then I didn't really meet Don, I think, until the early 2000s
Okay.
when I heard he was coming out with the 200E. And I was one of the first ones to order one. And of course, then I had 3 decades of work under my belt and I could start to afford something, hawk, get a loan on the house and then get a
Right.
nice big Buchla. So I did
Nice.
that in 2004. And, my encounters with Don were in person, like at NAM or on the phone a lot. But those were always good phone calls. It's like, so Don, what do you think? It's like, hey, what module should I get next? Would go great with what I have. And then there's always the long pause, and the answer is whatever you want.
Sounds very much in character.
Yeah.
I
So,
realize I actually ran into him probably in person a little bit earlier. In Berkeley, I met him through David Wessel at Sinmats
oh,
and
yeah.
spend a lot of evenings with libations and talking back and forth. And he was, of course, laconic, as you described
Yeah.
in those phone calls. Another encounter we had was at NAM when the Red Panel
Oh,
series
yeah.
came out. They're the recreations of the 100s, and we can see a couple of those right there.
Yes.
The corner, the 158 and 156. Still looking for that transient one to see if any of those are around. But yeah, how did you come to work with Buchla on that series?
Oh, yeah.
And what happened with it?
Right. Well, I became aware of before it became the Red Panel. It was Catalyst Audio. Dave Small was
All right.
building Buchla 100s, and so I was really stoked because actually I'd had a Buchla 100 original for a while, which I sadly had to sell. So it was then all of a sudden I was going, well, I still have my 100 chops. I'd love to get into it. So I got sort of, I think, a prototype set from Dave just on loan and did some videos for Catalyst Audio. And and then, and I can't remember whether it was Catalyst Audio or after Buchla USA. went into uh, companionship with Dave and
Right.
turned it into the Red Panel. But either that or the other one, I did a piece facetiously entitled Golden Kumquats at Noon. Just as sort of proof of concept that it could do some of the stuff that was happening in Silver Apples of the Moon. Uh,
Right.
and so, yeah, the system can do it all. Of course, you have to layer it, which is what Spotnik was doing too. You know, Eric Fox and Dave Small, Eric from Buchla, Dave from Catalyst Audio, merged and came out with Red Panel. And then, yeah, you saw us at NAM, and Dave that year um, also had a touch plate controller and a filter, I think. Yeah, I mean, he was really starting to trick it out, and I was just chomping at the bit to get the other modules. And then I don't know what happened. I wasn't privy to it. It's like all of a sudden they did the Red Panel and then they decided not to support the Red Panel. So I think after a while, um, the rights have reverted now back to Dave. And I was talking to him at the Buchla Friends, and he's going to fire that up again.
Cool.
And he's also making some really interesting new modules
I know. I was going to
that,
ask about that. Your
yeah,
thoughts on
I
the
mean,
new
I
ones that
was
he's doing.
blown away. They're low voltage tube uh, modules, and they sound fantastic. So I can't wait to see those come out.
Yeah.
And yes, and I hope the other person making 100s is Tokyo Tape Music Center,
Right.
and they have quite a full range of and they sound awesome. So I think it takes a special wiring to want to go into the 100 series, but
Yeah.
it's really
And
amazing. And I'm
it's an
glad to,
adventure.
the 158 that you have in the background there, you cross modulate that and you can go
Yes.
anywhere. It's still one of it's my favorite cross mod oscillator.
Think one of mine too. I just, I probably overuse that cross modulation with it, but it
Never.
is like you're saying, so addictive. And
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
totally.
yeah. And I think the other thing I like, there's kind of a rawness to the 100 series with, sort of embracing the instability that I've really enjoyed. I did my own Silver Apples tribute type compositions, so
Yeah.
as we all do, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
No, I agree. There's a raw power to the 100.
And, with Catalyst Audio, after listening to those MIGs, I can hear some of that quality there too. So this is a good reminder to get on the wait list. So, yeah, I guess another one, speaking of wait list, is, finally acquired my dual slope generator for, like Euro Surge. Been waiting for that for a while and just pounced on it.
Oh, good,
Um,
good.
I have my own thoughts on how to start, which is just turning it on and doing things. But, do you have any thoughts on how you would start with that for the first time?
Cross
Or how you,
modulated.
yeah.
Yeah, they can both be oscillators or, just exploring. And since they can be, one can be an LFO or you can do, I mean, yeah, it's so deep. It's interesting you mention that because nobody, there's, it's almost impossible to do a full blown tutorial on how to use the Surge system. I mean, there's some really good folks there. Ben Carey has done some good stuff, and Doug Linner and
Mhm.
other folks.
Yeah.
But the other week I was thinking, okay, maybe I will just do a 3 hour set of tutorials on just the dual universal slope generator. And if you can understand that, then all the other stuff sort of falls into place. But
Right.
yeah, so there's no simple other than, when I got my first Surge, there were no, in 79, there wasn't, the manual hadn't come out yet. So it took me a week to get a sound out. And then it was just like plug and try. So that's, yeah. Now, in fact,
Yeah.
I love the dual universal slope generator so much. I think I just posted, was it last night on my Instagram, I designed a Surge panel and then my friend Felix did the he did all. I mean, he built it and made some beautiful design choices. At any rate, it's a smooth step generator, then six or three dual universal slope generators, so six slope generators, which I can have six oscillators, I can have three oscillators, two filters, and a LFO. Or I mean, the factorial combination is insane. And then a couple low pass gates, some more random, and CV processing, which is always one of my fave.
Yeah, yeah, the slope generator always seemed like one that should come in convenient six packs or something like that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Go down to the local bodega and get a six pack of dual universal
exactly.
slope generators.
Well, we will be putting links to the to your YouTube channel in above and in the description below, as well as to the Instagram.
Great.
And just a shameless plug, we will be doing our own little tutorial on the dual slope generator in a few weeks. So please subscribe if you haven't and stay tuned for that. And yeah, so I think we're getting into, the subject of doing demos, tutorials,
Mm.
um, and that you've been deeply involved in instruction, with the university, as well as now with all these tutorials with instruction pedagogy and the individual instruction that I think you offer. So, can you talk to us a little bit more about your approach to teaching, to instruction, in all these different various media?
Yeah, for one-on-one instruction online that I've been doing now for 10 years or something, that is totally ad hoc, uh, because the people that find me, it's sort of by word of mouth. And so sometimes I get uh, folks that are just beginning. So that is, for me, I'm a advocate of really learning a single module, uh, and then slowly, then let's learn two modules, let's learn three modules. And so in that case, there's some routine and progress that way. Other people come to me, fully formed, and we end up talking philosophically or theoretically uh,
Mhm.
about all these things and explore new ideas. So it's a wide spectrum from beginners to, Adam Holbert is the head of Sonic Media, I think, or in the University of New South Wales in Sydney. And another fellow, same caliber at University of Melbourne, and then other, I have amazing musicians like Amir El Safar, who's plays quarter tone maqam trumpet and is a vocalist, and has big band and does electron. And we're looking at Serge. Started at the beginning, and of course, being such a great musician, he's taking it all new places now. So yeah, for me, teaching is just I it's more about asking questions and watching people grow. I think so.
Yeah, I agree on that teaching there, and kind of now thinking about when it moves from sort of the practice of music making that we're talking about, whether starting with a single module or then building up inductively from there, versus, coming in a different direction and going towards philosophy
Yeah.
of these modular instruments. I'm not going to say which, whether it's going up or down in either case, but how does sort of philosophy of music making with these instruments unfold? I'm sure there's many different ways, but maybe. Right.
Um, that's a good question. I guess the philosophy is about listening. It's what my favorite quote from David Tudor was. I don't try to make these sonic things do what I want them to do. Rather, I try to listen to what they want to do. That's a philosophical approach. And and that's really different than, okay, how do I make a kick? I mean, that's one way, and I want this, this to sound that way, and that's you know totally a great way to learn is, or how do I do this, or how do I make that? I mean, it's that's sort of the tried and true. When I was growing up as a in junior high and high school playing jazz trumpet, I was learning Dizzy Gillespie trumpet solos, right? And that's a great way to learn the vocabulary and learn where things go. So it's also applicable to uh, modular, but trying to listen to what the instrument is telling you is a completely different ballgame. And I guess it's what I call following the sound. It's like taking a sound and you know asking what if. That's that's what I do every day. It's what if I push it just a little or add that, and then okay, let's just start cranking up the knobs slowly. That's another sort of approach I swear by and still do today, is turning knobs really, really slowly and finding all the different things in there. Like, I mean, it's in the case of wave folding, it's really subtle. In fact, well, wave folding can be jumpy. So I practice going slow enough that I can feel just before it jumps so I can soften that transition. It's like any instrumentalist. I was trumpet player or shakuhachi. You have to get down to this really fine um, sensitivity to both sound and musculature. In this case, it's sliders or knobs, and turning back to your Red Panel 158 cross-modded. You know, if I mean just turning one of the knobs super slowly, it's like whoa, and what started out like at zero is pretty pure, and then it gets crunchy, and then it might disappear, and then it gets super crunchy. I mean, I'm just fascinated by that. And then you do two knobs at the same time, maybe going different directions.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that, thinking about, not just the electronics, but also jazz. I'm a jazz keyboardist as well. And, yeah, there is the approach of, learning the techniques, learning the idioms, like copying solos that have been transcribed. But really, like at some point you switch over to listening. I mean, the essence of, well, I guess the essence of any music is listening, but the essence of playing jazz is about listening and adapting in real time to what the others are playing. So I do get a sense that there is some similarities there, and I think I've always noticed them too. But yeah.
Yeah. With piano, right, and trumpet and all the that we grew up with, there were they're etude, they're study books. Like I played trumpet studies for decades, or and but there's no etude book for your setup because your setup's way different than my Euro rack is different than your Euro rack, so it's impossible. Though that said, okay, here's a shameless plug for Sarah Bell Reed. She has a learning synthesis class,
Oh yeah.
and she is brilliant at making up little exercises. If you that's another thing I suggest with my students is, we have to make up our own etudes and practice them. But anyway, Sarah's class is awesome. So if
Yeah.
anyone's not is thinking about getting into synthesis, I recommend that.
Moving on to, I think, our most recent encounter before today, of course, was at the Buchla Friends event in LA, and I heard some wonderful performances, both with the four-channel system as well as with Suzanne Ciani at the end. That was really kind of just a great experience. We'll put a link to our video of it up here as well. Um, yeah, so I just wanted to say thank you for those.
Oh, my pleasure. That was a blast. And, you know, I didn't know I was going to get to play with Suzanne, which was a real treat. I've known her for decades. Her sister or relative lived here in Ashland, and she would come up to see plays at the Shakespeare Festival. So we met then, decades ago. And but yeah, originally I was going to basically warm up for Suzanne that day, and she brought her Marf, and Buchla brought two large, either 18 or 24 boat systems. So Suzanne plugged her Marf in and was patching away, and I had mine and was patching away. And after, I don't know, 45 minutes of patching, she hit go or something. And one of the modules that had come down from the Bay Area and the Buchla thing, I think this is the way this go. I wasn't really privy. Something didn't work. And just before we were moving all the quad speakers out into the big room, she goes, I can't perform.
My goodness.
I was just like, oh my
Thanks.
God. And then she goes, I can do white noise. And how about Todd and I do a duet? So I went, okay, I'm down. So yeah, we both just walked out there and had there was really no setup, just do. And it was great. I was blown away. She was still going through her quad system, so she was doing white noise. And I can remember, you know, it was just a blast to perform with her. I mean, both totally in the pocket. And all of a sudden, she started getting formant sounds out of this white noise. And I had to lean over and go, whoa, that's awesome. Because I didn't expect that coming out. So no, it was an honor and a great experience. She had told me a story while we were patching of originally when she started coming back to doing analog performance, Buchla performances. She didn't have there wasn't really a good Marf out there, so she used the Buchla 250E, the sort of oval sequencer. It didn't have all the features that the Marf and she played tennis with Don every week, I believe, all the for decades. And one day she goes, you know, Don, I can't. The 250 just doesn't quite tune right. You know, it's and you know, I can't. I can't. You know, I need it to do that. What should I do? And then there was the requisite long pause. And the answer was, "Mm, why don't you do something else?"
Oh,
Thanks, Don. So
yes.
we got a big chuckle out of that, but at the end we realized that's exactly what our performance ended up being.
Yeah.
Let's do something else. That
Yeah.
was probably the title of it.
Another cool thing about that event, at one point it's a small community, but it's also a large and growing community connecting, pioneers who have been in this business for decades with younger generations who are either, connoisseurs of it, trying out performance or, making their own instruments. And we saw a lot of people doing that. And there's this kind of embarrassment of riches now.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little bit overwhelming of that, but it's like wonderful to see this proliferation and this community growing. So kind of where do you see a lot of this kind of sort of making music with signals going, musically as well as, socially?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think, when the Eurorax first came out, it was all analog, and now, of course, it's all hybrid, which is it's fine. It's, as you say, it's this huge panoply of possibilities, and every day there's new modules and new things. So, um, and I love that the community, it seems really inclusive, especially things like Portland Synth Library and various other places just seem to be Willie Mae Rock Camp. More people can make music now, I guess, than ever before. Maybe. At least they're making different kinds of music, and everyone comes to the modular world uh, with their own personality. And that it's amazing seeing all the different ways because modular is so wide open. You get such a diversity of musics and soundscapes, and I guess that's just going to keep going. I don't know what the future holds, but it
Yeah.
does seem to be expanding. The universe is expanding, right? We do know
Yes. Whatever we do, that seems to still be happening.
that.
And with that, Todd, it's really been great chatting with you and having this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Amanda. Thank you for having me, and wonderful to hang with you.
To find out more about the sonic adventures of Todd Barton, please visit his website and check out the description below this video. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to CatSynth TV.
You were watching CatSynth TV.